Computer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and admit everybody. All right, everyone.
I'm on a conference.
All of our reporter friends. We are here. If you could just mute your line. And hey, Matt. So if you could just mute your line, I'd appreciate it. And we will get started here in just a second. I think we've got everybody muted except those that need to speak. Cool. Sorry, good afternoon, everybody. So I've got Mayor Lee, Vice Mayor Cobb, and City Manager Bob Cowell here. So they're gonna go over some information that's due, and then we'll kind of do like we've done before. You can put your questions in the chat box, and then we'll be able to go and answer them, okay? So go ahead, Mayor, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tiffany. And let me say good afternoon, everybody. In an effort to ensure compliance with the governor's executive order number 55, beginning at 8 a.m. on Friday, April 3rd, I want to make the following announcements. The Roanoke River Greenway, the Tinker Creek Greenway, the Lick Run Greenway, the Mill Mountain Greenway, the Garden City Greenway will be closed to the general public. And with all of those, all of the associated parking areas will be closed to the general public beginning at 8 a.m. on Friday, April the 3rd. The access road to Mill Mountain Park will be closed. And park personnel working in concert with the Roanoke Police Department will be patrolling our parks, courts, and fields to ensure compliance with the governor's order limiting gatherings. These closures will remain in effect until at least April 30th. Now, further violations of the governor's order will result in the full closure of all city parks and trails as soon as next Monday. So it's important that the public understands that any violation will result in full closure of all the city parks and trails as soon as next Monday the 6th. These extraordinary actions taken by a city manager were necessary in light of recent blatant disregard of the guidance provided by the CDC and the Virginia Department of Health and local authorities. And we all understand that while exercise and fresh air are essential for our physical and mental well-being, these things must be done in a manner that protects public safety. And let me emphasize that, protects public safety. Please note that we're not, as a community, on vacation. And let me emphasize that again. We're not, as a community, on vacation. We are a community under a stay-at-home order issued by the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we want to make sure that we drive that message home. So do just that. Stay at home. Leave your home or neighborhood only for essential reasons, and more people will remain safe. And our doctors and nurses and EMS personnel who are on the front line will better be able to save lives. And I do thank all of our frontline people and responders who are really working to make things safe for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to talk with you all about our upcoming April 6th City Council meeting. There are no council briefings scheduled for the morning of April 6th, so the regular 9 o'clock briefing session will not be held. The 2 p.m. City Council meeting will be held as a virtual meeting. Citizens will be able to watch the meeting live on Roanoke Valley Television, Cox Channel 3, or on the city's Facebook page via live stream. If you would like to address Roanoke City Council on Monday, April 6th during the 2 o'clock meeting, you can sign up online at roanokeva.gov/formcenter-citycouncil-10, and we'll include this sign-in information in the comment section of this press briefing. Or you can call the city clerk's office at 853-2541. You must sign up by noon on Monday, April 6th. And when you sign up, you'll be given a phone number and access call to join the virtual meeting. During Monday's meeting, City Council will receive a briefing on the budget and financial planning for fiscal year 2021. The focus will be primarily on fiscal year 2020 stabilization and beginning discussion around rebuilding fiscal year 21's budget proposal. At this time, fiscal year 20 budget revenue shortfalls are estimated at a minimum of $9 million compared to the approved fiscal year 20 budget. Administration has initiated expenditure controls, which will be discussed with council during the briefing. We anticipate fiscal year 21 budget revenue projections are very likely to exceed the fiscal year 20 $9 million reduction over the approved fiscal year 20 budget. Also at the meeting, council will vote to authorize the annual establishment of the percentage reduction for personal property tax relief for the 2020 tax year and to execute an amendment to the city's contract with Motorola Solutions Incorporated to provide necessary maintenance and support for the newly implemented systems, which is related to our new E911 facility. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. I'm going to just sort of, my part is kind of a reminder of folks related to the city operations here in our municipal buildings. Of course, municipal offices remain closed to the general public and will remain closed until further notice. With the exception of city council meetings, all official meetings, community events, and so on have been canceled through the month of April. We will also not, we will evaluate at the end of April where we are in terms of whether there are any applications taken for meetings that would otherwise be scheduled into the month of May. Our focus continues to remain on taking steps to reduce the risk of exposure for the general public and for our employees while continuing to conduct essential city business. We will strive to keep our employees informed and safe and prepared for the continuity of operations, and we can certainly talk more about what those involve. There have been a number of steps taken as well within the city. Obviously, even though our offices are closed, a significant amount of our workforce remains on the job because we still continue to have to deliver those essential services. And so that has necessitated us increasing the amount of safety measures that we have put in place. Just a few of those include screening practices that are going on prior to entry of our buildings. There are those that are general for our employees that are reporting for non-public safety work, and then there are enhanced screening practices put in place for our public safety employees as well. We have altered some of the ways in which we are deploying our police force to ensure that in the event that any of them are required to quarantine or get sick or both, that we have the ability to continue to staff at levels that we need to be able to do that. We have reduced sizes of crews for both public works, as predominantly in sanitation, as well as in our parks and recreation. And that is an effort to enable them to perform the work that they need to keep doing, but maintain physical distance as they report to and from their work assignments as they go through. And there are several other steps that have been taken as well to try to minimize, again, the risk to our employees and to the general public and to the disruption of those essential services that we are required to continue to deliver. So mostly kind of reminders of what we've been doing. I will again remind everyone that we continue to update our website, and that contains information for the general public as to what may be going on with the situation and any alterations in services for the city. It is also a location where our employees can access information, as well as where our local businesses can access information relative to the support that they are being provided locally, as well as through the state and federal government. And those are the update items. And I think at this point, we will turn it over for questions that anyone may have. And I believe we'll continue to do as we have done, I think, before, which is as folks have questions, if they will type those questions in, we will read them back, and one of the three of us or a combination of those will provide answers to any questions that you may have for us.
All right, so our first one is from Matt Chittum with the Roanoke Times. What park facilities are closed again? Mayor Lee mentioned greenways. Any changes to playground equipment, basketball, tennis, and pickleball courts or athletic fields?
Right now, Matt, the changes or the closures are those limited to the parks, the greenways that the mayor identified. So easy way to think of it is any of our greenways that are paved will actually be closed beginning Friday morning. The Mill Mountain area will be closed because the access is closed, the vehicular access is closed. And all of those were selected because, as was exhibited at this last weekend, those are the locations that had large congregations of folks, just by virtue of the fact so many people were taking advantage of using those. And there is honestly no way for us to honor the governor's order when those facilities continue to be open. The court facilities were the other areas that we had issues, as well as athletic fields. So we had folks playing large soccer games as well as basketball games with a large number of folks. For the weekend, at least, what we'll be doing is, as the mayor mentioned, we'll patrol those with park personnel. They won't make contact with the individuals there. If they see congregations, though, they will contact our local police department, who will then indeed report as able and remove and ask that group to disperse. As the mayor indicated, though, if we get a repeat this weekend of what we experienced last weekend, even if we're dispersing those crowds, we will then take further action, which may include the complete closure of the parks in order to try to actually ensure that we're receiving compliance for those areas. The last thing I'll say about that as well is, with this in place on Friday, we absolutely do not want folks calling 911 to tell us about crowds that are in parks. Don't call the non-emergency police line. Don't call. We've got folks that are actually out patrolling with the Parks Department. We will identify groups that are participating. We need to reserve those other lines to deal with other emergencies that we're dealing with as we go through. Eric, their question is, does the Mill Mountain closure include the trail network? At this point, it's not a full closure of Mill Mountain Park. It is a closure to vehicular access up to the park and the Star, and it is a closure of the paved greenway getting up to it. We do in our community have a large number of natural trails, and so far those natural trails have been able, we've been able to see that those natural trails are used by a low number of individuals who are able to maintain adequate and actually in some cases significant distance. As the mayor said, we recognize that it's essential that people be able to get out and actually get fresh air and exercise. And we have some very, very large parks that people can readily do that, can walk their dog or be out there with part of their family and maintain that absolute separation. And we're trying to enable that to last as long as it possibly can, if people will just help us and honor those requirements.
Okay, Shane with WSLS. Lynchburg just saw its first firefighter test positive, and it took out a whole shift. Are we prepared staffing-wise for police firefighters to meet staffing minimums if shifts or platoons are needing to quarantine?
Yes, we are. So in the case of the fire department a couple of weeks ago actually ran through and prepared a number of scenarios where how we would actually scale down to be able to provide the service we need if we were at a 75% level and a 50% level. So they would certainly do that. In an example, what we would do is, if there were, for example, in that scenario, a structure fire, you would probably see fewer units actually respond to that structure fire. On the police side, what we've done is we've changed our deployment formula, in which the deployment is allowing a certain amount of folks to remain in reserve, and we're rotating through those. That would allow us, as those, should those folks end up being quarantined or actually sick, then we would be able to deploy those reserve forces and maintain the level of services that we are able to. None of those would be obviously the exact same level of service that we have today, but they would be the level of services that would meet our essential requirements and our needs. And I will say, we've already been going through, as we go through and as we have response on the EMS side to calls, we are already moving people in and out of service, because sometimes based on the call, they're having to step out for 72 hours or so while they monitor their conditions to ensure that they're not symptomatic in any way. And we've been working very closely with the health department. So we're already putting into practice some of those changes that we had planned for a couple of weeks ago.
All right. Matt asks, were the changes to work practices, Bob, listed in any way a result of the social services worker testing positive?
No, thankfully, we had most of those practices already in place when we learned of the positive test from the social services worker. So in that case, the employee actually did the right thing, and this was over 2 weeks ago that they actually felt ill. They did the right thing by following our protocol, which is if they felt ill, don't come to work, call in and explain what's going on. So by doing that, they avoided exposing any of their coworkers through that. All of the only item that we have changed most recently is actually ensuring that we have a well-defined return to work policy for those that may test positive. And we have that now in place. And of course, today we actually pushed out a policy change that is related to the new act that Congress passed relative to paid leave associated with anyone that's dealing with coronavirus. So those are the only two that we've changed recently. All the other ones we had in place already prior to this particular incident.
Okay, are you able to tell us the status of the city employee who tested positive? Have any other city employees tested positive?
Yeah, I mean, without violating that person's privacy associated with it, I will say that the person was not hospitalized and that they are actually doing well at this point. No, there have been no other employees to test positive.
What penalties, punishments will people face if they're caught congregating in parks, public spaces, if police, city officials feel they are not keeping adequate distance away from others?
Yeah, let me give you the official sort of law enforcement, I guess, or legal answer, and then I'd like the mayor and Joe perhaps to join in and kind of talk about really what I think they view as the community responsibility, separate and apart from the legal obligation. So the governor's order results in a class 1 misdemeanor. Obviously, what we would be doing is, let's say, for example, we come upon a soccer game that's underway with a large group of people. Parks employee sees that, the Parks employee will contact the police department. The police department will respond. The action that's going to be taken at that point is a requirement to disperse. We're not interested, nor are we going to be issuing those misdemeanors at that point. If it continues with those groups, then we would have to take additional actions. For the facilities that actually have been closed, we actually have the ability to enforce those under our own code, which is another type of misdemeanor. In that case, that actually carries a fine associated with it. And again, the first step in that would be to require someone to leave the closed facility. And then if they fail to do so, we certainly can take action on those relative to the misdemeanor. I do want to stress one thing, though. Our enforcement is going to be focused on the number of people. We're not equipped, nor are we going to be out with police officers trying to determine whether someone's 6 foot apart or 8 foot apart or 4 foot apart. Our focus is going to be on trying to determine, are there more than 10 individuals congregating in any particular area as we go through. And Mayor and Vice Mayor, if you wanted to add anything from, again, kind of that sort of public expectation, I think, for compliance.
Well, let me just say, and Bob, you did it so well, is we're not seeking to really charge anybody with any civil charges or arrest anybody. We want people to understand how important it is to stay within those guidelines. And that's why we've emphasized that this is about people's safety. It's about life. We're hoping that our students will not be, in my terms, selfish to go out and do those things. And so it's important that people, in other words, police themselves. And we're going to give you right now, especially in some of the parks, we're going to give you an opportunity to do that. But if we find that there's continual violations of that, then we have to come back and consider closing the parks down. And that's something that we don't want to do, but we have to do because we're in a crisis. There's a situation going on now that's a pandemic that's really, the news is not good every day. So we want to make sure that people in groups hopefully it will show leadership and responsibility and do the right thing.
Yeah, I would just concur with what Bob and the mayor have said. This isn't a time for public gatherings. This is a time for staying home, for reducing community spread, and for honoring this space that is so critical to flatten the curve and to address this this virus. I heard a medical professional say earlier today that while healthcare workers are on the front line, she argues that we as the public are the front line because we have the power to prevent this by keeping our distance, by honoring physical distance, and by not having community gatherings. We're the ones who can reduce community spread. So I would just urge everyone to concur and follow these guidelines.
Yeah, and let me give an example, because I realize that no doubt the closure of the greenways is I mean, it will be met with some concern because, you know, we're a community built on our outdoors and built on a very successful greenways program. But several weeks ago, when this first started, one of the first actions that was taken in every community across the entire Commonwealth was to prohibit groups gathering for things like outdoor sporting events, baseball games, concerts, those kinds of things. And really, even though people were arriving at the greenways, maybe individually or as couples, there are still 300, 400, 500 people actually in that area. That really is no different than what we already had indicated was not acceptable under these situations. And so, that was what was driving it. There's just no way when there's that many people. I mean, this is true, I'd say as well. This is true at McAfee Knob. This is true in a lot of our other places that we really enjoy normally in communities. And though those are outside our jurisdiction, folks really need to think seriously that if you drive upon a parking lot full of cars, you need to go on to the next stop or go home and walk in your neighborhood. I mean, that, it's that serious, and we don't take it lightly, but I use that as kind of a way in which to illustrate why it was necessary to do this with the greenways.
All right, and Vice Mayor Cobb, Matt Chittum's asking if you could repeat the information about the budget briefing coming up on Monday. If you could just run that down again.
Sure, I'll be glad to. So the budget financial planning briefing will include a focus on fiscal year 2020 stabilization and beginning discussion around rebuilding the fiscal year 21 budget proposal. Right now, the budget revenue shortfalls are estimated at a minimum of $9 million compared to the approved fiscal year 20 budget. Administration has initiated expenditure controls, and those will be covered and discussed during the briefing. We anticipate that fiscal year 21 budget revenue projections are very likely to exceed the fiscal year 29 million reduction. And I may have Bob elaborate on that a bit for you. And we'll also then discuss the annual establishment of the percentage reduction for personal property tax relief. Bob, can you elaborate on the revenue projections and that piece of it?
Yeah, so, obviously we're about 3 months left in this fiscal year. And so that $9 million that Joe is referring to as being a shortfall, that's the money, that's the less amount of money we anticipate getting for the remainder of the year from what we had budgeted. So obviously we have to back off of expenditures in order to close that gap and still arrive at a balanced budget. Obviously, we have no idea when either the pandemic will end nor the economic fallout associated with the pandemic. So we are anticipating, really, there's no reason not to anticipate that the first 3 months, so July, August, September of the next fiscal year, won't be as damaged economically as the last 3 months of this year, even if the pandemic were to end, because of the amount of time it would take for economic activity to pick back up. And so when we say that in 2021 fiscal year, we're anticipating at least $9 million, it's because we would expect to lose again at least those $9 million again in the first part of the year, and probably more than that as we work our way back through the rest of the year. And again, that is highly dependent on when the pandemic actually kind of winds down and economic activity is able to pick back up. So it'll get more significant the longer the pandemic lasts. And I will say too, the other budget related item that we will present at the council as well is the revised calendar for the budget approval. So the budget will be presented for will be approved by the council at their meeting on June 15th. And May 18th is the meeting at which I will deliver the balanced budget presentation to the council. So the rest of the calendar, though, will be presented to them as a part of that briefing.
Okay, our next question comes from Jeffrey Williamson. Why keep playgrounds open where there are surfaces that the virus can live compared to paths where people are just passing by each other?
Yeah, it's really a focus predominantly on trying to limit the number of people. What we witnessed, and I think what many people witnessed, were that when you had people passing one another on the greenways, and in some cases they certainly could maintain the 6 foot, but when you've got a couple hundred people all at the same time out on the greenway, that was not being maintained, and there's no expectation that we could really enforce that in any meaningful way. Playgrounds, we've been warning folks from the very beginning, even though we've been cleaning and sanitizing those playgrounds, that they have to assume that there is some risk associated with that. And we probably at some point will have to take some action relative to those also. One of the challenges with playgrounds is just the ability to actually physically control access to those. Obviously, most of our playgrounds are in neighborhoods and are open. So short of actually signing those and then being able to enforce those. And again, we may get to that point if, and this goes to Lindsay's question, that is where she's saying if there are more than 10 people in a park or public space, does that mean the city will shut those down? As the mayor indicated, if over the course of the weekend, if our monitoring indicates that still people are congregating in our parks in excess of the governor's order associated with those 10 folks, then indeed that means we will close parks. And likely it doesn't mean we'll close one park at a time or anything like that. It means we will close all of the parks and have to be able to enforce that. Because again, it's actually easier to enforce parks that are completely closed than it is to go park by park and trying to ensure that the number of people are staying below that number of 10.
We have real quick where WSLS is streaming this, and we hope to do this next week with our Facebook page. Maybe this is something that we can kind of, because I'm starting to hear this more and more, but just heard Roanoke City has checkpoints set up. And that if you want to.
We've been getting phone calls, and we'll make this clear right now. So we've been getting phone calls off and on today of folks indicating that they had heard that there were checkpoints, basically identifying whether people can come and go from our community. Obviously, there is no such action taking place. There is no such authority granted by us nor by the governor, and so there are none. I would say if somebody is attempting to stop you from coming or going inside the city, do please contact the police department, because it is someone who should not be doing that. But we have been getting those calls off and on today for some reason.
Thanks for addressing that, because it's starting to pop up more and more. All right, Lindsay with WSLS, if there are more than 10 people in a park public space, does that mean the city will then shut those down? She covered that. I think, does anyone else have anything for the good of the order right now? I think people are still asking about buses. Is there any updates with transit?
Eric's got another one regarding the budget. So Eric's asking, jumping back to the budget, can you give us a better sense of what those controls you mentioned would look like, and is the anticipated budget shortfall the result of lost sales tax revenue? Both good questions. Let me start with the second part first. Right now, it is the result effectively of the loss of revenue in all categories except for real estate. So definitely sales tax has obviously, we anticipate it obviously significantly falling off over the next few months. The meals tax, most definitely, because of course the meals tax is the tax that businesses collect on our behalf from their customers and then pass through to us. And obviously when the restaurants are predominantly closed except for takeout and delivery, those numbers have declined significantly. And the same is true on the lodging tax. When when hotels are at best 10% occupied, those tax revenues, again, that they collect from their patrons and pass on through to us, have declined significantly as well. So it's pretty much across the board. We also would anticipate that some of the collection rates will probably decline for some of our larger tax revenues as people struggle to be able to make payment associated with those. As far as our expenditure controls, what that has initially meant is we've taken 3 different steps. So one of those is we had a significant amount of dollars that were dedicated to fleet replacement where those vehicles had not yet been ordered. And so we have ceased those orders. So we will not be replacing those vehicles. So we controlled those expenditures. We also had a number of capital projects that we had in the pipeline that were using cash left over from last year, basically, which we have now canceled those projects as well. We have also gone back to all of our departments and required them to identify all expenditures which aren't already obligated, and we have frozen all of those expenditures. We have also issued a hiring freeze except for public safety and social service employees, and that actually occurred today. So those are a few of the expenditures that have, the expenditure controls that have already taken place, and we continue to identify others that we will be putting into place, especially as those revenue numbers come in and if they appear to be worse than what we were anticipating.
All right. Does anyone else have any final questions for either Mayor Lee, Vice Mayor Cobb, or City Manager Cowell?
And if not, Mayor, Vice Mayor, anything you would like to add as a kind of parting information?
Well, let me just say, Bob, I want to thank you and your staff for staying on top of these issues. And I just want to emphasize, we're monitoring our budget, and the whole issue with our economy is important to us. And when we talk about budget and revenues, that's important. But first and foremost is the fact that we want you to stay safe. And that's something I want to make sure that our public knows, and it's going to take all of us together. That's just not a cliche. All of us working to make sure that our community is safe and we can do what we can do. That's not a lot of things that can be done, but make sure that we do all we can to make sure that we can curtail this virus that is just being predicted to peak few weeks down the road. And so I want to thank everybody for their efforts and ask you to continue. Please show leadership. Go out and not do those things that we've asking you, and the governor and the president so far is asking you not to do. So thank you, Bob, and the council, and we're so we're really concerned with the issues that are going on, but we have a plan in place. And as Bob mentioned, that if there are any questions, you can go to the website. We got a lot of questions, but many of them can be answered on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I would just agree with the mayor and just add to that, which he alluded to, just stay as hopeful as you can. Encourage each other in positive ways. One of the things that's so amazing about Roanoke is the way that we are able to lift each other up during challenging times. We're a very resilient city, and I would just encourage each other to find ways to do that. Support leaders, support healthcare workers, support frontline workers, and just remember that we have the primary responsibility and the ability to prevent the spread of this virus. So let's take that seriously and really show how Roanoke can once again lead the way.
Thank you all very much. And thank you all for joining us as well.
All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and end this, but we're going to try to do one of these each week at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. So we'll definitely let you all know, and we will broadcast on Facebook Live with those as well. So have a great day and stay safe.